How to play Pablo. Look at that. Oh, he pulled that gun on you and everything. He's cool. He's actually he probably would be my favorite support. I love playing as Pablo. At the time of the making of this video, unfortunately, he has a really bad bug. At least I think it's a bug and not intended. That makes the range on his AoE healing that's built into the support class much shorter than the other two classes. So it's really poopy. It stinks. But otherwise, I love playing as Pablo because I don't even care that much about Infernal Camouflage. It's really his ability to craft amulets that I love so much. So with that, we'll jump right into it. Gift from El Brujo Especial. Activate this skill to begin creating an amulet and then drop it to the ground on completion. It has a 120-second cooldown. I love this ability because the first thing you're going to run out of in the late game is shields, amulets, and the fact that he could just keep pumping these out is crazy because it basically means like late game you're going to have amulets in situations where if you didn't have a support, I mean if you didn't have Pablo or if you had the other two supports, you're not going to have any amulets left by the time you get to the dark ones, most likely. And he's basically going to ensure that you're going to have 2 to 3 to 4 amulets for that stage, and that's huge for like increasing your team's survivability. It'd basically be like if there was a character who could just produce a Shemps. You know, it's crazy. It's really, really good. I love being able to produce amulets for the late game. Probably, not even probably, without a doubt, my favorite ability of the 3 supports. Infernal Camouflage makes it so demons are no longer able to detect you using demon vision. What this effectively means, so that, let me explain this. Let me break it down for you because there's a lot of confusion over what this means. This means that Pablo will not alert the demon if he shoots his gun. He will not alert the demon if he reaches the fear threshold and starts screaming. He will not alert the demon if he gets in a car. However, if he gets in a car, the demon can see a moving car on his map. So smart demons, if they see a Pablo in the game, early game will probably periodically check their map and see if a car is symbol is moving on the map. So they can see that. They also will be notified if you have somebody in the car with you. So it's only if Pablo is by himself. So basically what this means is he's really good early game at just running around the map by himself because the demon's not going to be able to find him, basically. So if you want to, you can play him as like a solo queue god to get the map pages done really, really fast. Now, again, the best way to go about that would be to go jump into a car and then drive to each map piece. But if it's a smart demon, they might check their map and see where you're going. And if you get caught out by yourself, especially with basic unit possession being the meta at the time of the making of this video, there's a good chance you're going to get killed. So you got to be very, very careful when playing Pablo like that. If you're trying to play him as a solo queue objective hunter. His third thing is Legacy of El Brujo. He begins the match with an additional amulet. It's kind of whatever. Like, we'll get more into this in a second when I get into his perks, but he really doesn't necessarily need to have any extra items to start because of his ability to run off and loot by himself safely. He's going to be able to stock himself up, maybe even better than the other 2 supports because of his ability to be so independent. So that's pretty nice, and it makes this ability kind of whatever. And then the most whatever level 25 ability maybe in the game. There's worse ones, I'm sure, but this one's pretty mid. Shamanic Protection. Your shield bar will gradually recover over time until you have at least 1 full bar. This is pretty okay, I guess, for late game. Like late game, if you are completely out of shields, this does increase his survivability, which is really nice. mid to early game, it's not as important because you're probably going to be full shields all the time anyway. So it's kind of whatever. It's pretty good late game. I'll give it that. It is pretty good late game. It basically means that if you do cough up an amulet late game, which is the reason I love his active ability so much, now if he uses it, he's gonna basically have 2 shields, so that's nice, assuming he maxed it out from shamanic protection. So that's pretty cool. As far as his perks go, there's a lot of different ways that you could well, not a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of, there's a couple different ways you can build him. This is how I build him. I like playing him as a ranged support. And the reason that I do that is because any support, I really like to play them in a way to where I'm kind of out of the way. I don't want to be in the thick of everything. I don't want to be using melee where there's tons of enemies swinging all over the place, where I'm going to be taking a lot more damage. What I like to do is hang back outside, take shots at enemies with all these points into like range damage. I'm going to be like one tapping basic, so I get to really contribute on that end and be kind of somebody who can horde clear and clear out all those basics. And then I'm not going to be taking a ton of damage. And then I always keep an eye on my teammates' health in the bottom left. And then as soon as I see somebody's hurt, I can run in, dodge in, pop a Shemps, pop an amulet, and then get back out. So that's why I really like using more of a ranged build. For like specifically the perk Shemps Plus, I like to max this out. I think it's better than maxing out like say improved amulet or something, because 30% health restored over time with how many Shemps you're going to be using over the course of the match, hopefully, is going to result in a lot of extra health. So I really like the 30% extra health on Shemps Plus. 1 point in Artful Dodger. Again, you don't need 2 because 1 point is going to give you those 3 dodges, and it's just a waste to put another point into this. I like to put 3 points into Stopping Power to give you extra balance bar damage from your ranged weapons. Just another way that you can contribute if like a boss comes down. If you know a boss comes down, or even a possessed basic in the beginning, and all your warriors or leaders or whoever's in there are wailing on them, you can toss some pop shots in there to help break their balance bar and make it a little bit easier for your big damage dealers to deal with them. I have 2 points into balance bar damage on your melee attacks just because I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with this last little point. It's going to depend on, I think, what you want to do with packing pop. So I'll just get into this now that I'm talking about it. If you wanted to, especially because he has shamanic protection and he's basically giving himself a shield bar at all times, if you wanted to, you could come here and just max this out, because it's essentially going to be like a flat 10% damage reduction. So if you wanted to, you could do that and not take packing pop. And the reason that you may not want to take packing pop is because what I mentioned earlier, because Pablo is so independent. If you play him that way and you like running off on your own to start the match, chances are you're going to fill up your entire inventory with healing items, even without starting the match with an extra Shemps. The reason that I like to start with extra Shemps is because at the time of the making of this video, the meta right now is basic unit possession rushing at the beginning of the match. So I like starting with a couple of extra Shemps just in case it's a demon who's so good they jump us right away and I have to help my team and I can't go be independent because the one basic possessed unit is just wiping the other 3 teammates. So that's why I like to start with packing pop for now. But if you wanted to take that off and invest those points in reinforced amulet, or maybe tougher than hell, or maybe even seeing stars, that's an option for you. So again, I like to put 3 points into Wig Splitter, the extra headshot damage, because of how I like to play ranged. 1 point into tougher than hell, just so we can get to hollow points and get that 15% extra range damage. I do not like putting points into melee because, again, I don't like getting into the fray, getting into all that action in the middle of everything, because I think it's really dangerous and will wind up getting you injured more often than not. I do not take Fear No Evil because I truly believe on supports, fear is basically irrelevant to you. If the demon possesses the support, it's basically a win for your team. The demon should only really be possessing the warrior or the hunter. The hunter is the demon's best option. If for some reason they waste a possession on the support, that's a win for you guys. So you really don't need to worry about Fear No Evil too much. Very rarely is your fear going to come into play. And especially on Pablo, he really doesn't need to worry about it because he can run off on his own. And if he reaches the fear threshold, that won't alert the demon. So he even more so than the other supports doesn't need to worry about fear as much. You can put points into Reinforced Amulet, like I said, if you want to. Never put points into Improved Amulet because the difference is minimal. It just doesn't make a big enough difference. It's a difference at 10%. It's a difference of like 60 health. It's really, really bad. I would never put points into Improved Amulet. Arcane Knowledge. He is probably the only character in the entire game that you would consider putting points into Arcane Knowledge on because of how he could go around and collect map pieces early by himself. So this will make it easier and faster for him to find map pieces. However, I personally haven't dove into it yet because I think you could detect them from far enough away as it is. And absolute, like, just rumors I've heard from the community is they can't tell the difference. People who have maxed this out claim they can't really tell the difference of 50% extra radius. So take that for what it's worth. Personally, even if it made a huge difference, I don't know that you necessarily need it. I'm at a point now, especially, where I pretty much know where the map piece, like I've memorized the spawns. So I don't really need this because I know what places to check. If it's not here, I know it's over here. So I don't really need this. And you shouldn't either once you get to that point. I put 1 point into First Aid just so I could get Deep Pockets. Deep Pockets for amulets and Shamp's Cola are an absolute requirement on every single support. Always take these two perks. I don't care what your build is. If you're a support and you're not taking these, you're doing your team a disservice. Like I said, I already mentioned Packing Pop with Shamp's Cola. You can take points out of this if you want. I personally like it because of the possession basic unit rush meta. Industrial Strength is not a bad idea. Don't forget, at the time of making this video, this is currently bugged. This will probably be fixed, but if you max this out, it'll reset your health back to the base. So I'll only put 3 points into this for now. If you're watching this later, you can always Google it and see if this got fixed. If it did get fixed, there's nothing wrong with like maxing this out. I'm just not sure where you would take the points from. I would say if you wanted to put points into this, one thing you could do is you could maybe take the points out of Shemp's Plus and 1 point out of Seeing Stars, and then max out Industrial Strength if that's something you want to do once that's fixed. One last thing I want to say about perks before we move on to Pink F upgrades. On my last support video, I had a lot of people coming in and commenting and saying, you're really underrating the like revival based perks. No, I'm not. They're really, 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 really bad, and I'll explain to you why. First of all, let's read them. Let's see what they are. One is Courage in Numbers. When you revive a teammate from bleeding out, your fear is partially reduced. 50% fear reduction. And then we have Good Karma. When you revive a teammate from bleeding out, you recover a percentage of health, 20%. And Brave Survivor, when you revive a teammate from bleeding out, their fear level will not increase for a limited time, 15 seconds. First of all, these buffs aren't even that good to begin with. We also have First Aid. When you revive a teammate from bleeding out, they recover a percentage of the health. This is the best one. First Aid's the best one. 35% recovered health for your teammate is the best revival perk you could use as a support. But here's why they're bad. There is nothing that makes it easier for you as a support to get the revive. It'd be like... I don't know if anyone's ever played this game. It doesn't matter. I'll explain it to you anyway. It'd be like at one time in Apex Legends, there was a character lifeline. She's still in the game, but one of her original abilities was when she would revive somebody, a big shield would come up and it would protect you while you're reviving them. That means that she's really good at reviving teammates because she gets protected while she does it. If there was a perk in this game that allowed you to either revive faster or allowed you to revive and be temporarily protected or shielded while you revive, then these perks would have some value. But because there's not, there's no reason to take these perks, because two things can happen. Number one, you could go through an entire match where nobody ever goes down, and now you have just completely wasted points in all of these perks. Everything else that you could put points into, you're getting guaranteed value out of. Like, the only possible exception is packing pop. Maybe you didn't need those extra shems, and that's why I've said it's possible you can trade that out. The reason I'm taking it is because of the meta right now. But outside of that, you get value guaranteed every single match out of all these perks. You could play a game and no one ever goes down, and now you just wasted points in all these slots. So that's really bad. Even if, the second thing is, even if somebody goes down, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the one to get the revive, or even that it's a good idea for you to try to go get the revive. I've had so many scenarios playing Pablo or any character where there's 3 people left alive, one person goes down, and whatever unit is currently possessed chases me. And now I know, okay, I need to lead this possessed unit away, this possessed basic, the boss, whoever it might be, lead them away so my teammate can go get the res. If you take a bunch of revival perks, it's probably going to encourage you to play stupid and try to fight your way past the boss and go get the res, because you're like, oh, I want to give my teammate a bunch of health and give myself health and all this fear reduction, all these other great buffs once I res them. It's not a good idea. There's too much of a risk that you will get absolutely zero value out of these perks to ever justify bringing them. The only way you could justify bringing them is either they have they make a massive difference. I'm talking about, like, you pick somebody up and they're full healed and it full heals you. You pick somebody up and it maxes out their ammo. It'd have to be a ridiculous buff to justify taking a perk that you potentially never get to use in a match. Or there would have to be a perk that makes it easier for you to get revivals off, so that if somebody does get down, it's nearly guaranteed that you're going to be the one who's getting the res on them. But because none of those things are the case, those perks are awful, don't take them. I just wanted to set the record straight on that from people who were telling me in the comments on my last support video, hey man, take those, you got to take those revival perks, man. No, I will not. Not unless something significantly changes.
I appreciate the vote of confidence.
All right, let's take a look at Pick F upgrade, shall we? Let's have a look. Right out the gate, first thing that I'm going to put points into, as I believe with every support, and look how fast his shield bar. I'm in the way.
I've devised a method to spread.
Look how fast his shield bar.
Follow my instructions.
Look how fast his shield bar just filled up. Like, I couldn't even get my webcam out of the way in time. I couldn't even get my webcam out of the way in time. That's crazy.
You'll need them.
That's how fast his webcam fills up. That's nuts. I mean, did I just say webcam? Yeah, that's how fast his shield bar fills up. I'm an idiot. His shield bar. It fills up super fast. I didn't know it was that fast. That basically means he has one shield bar at all times. It's just constantly filling. That's crazy. I take back anything negative I said about that, by the way. That's wild. I haven't played Pablo at 25 because I've been getting every character to 25 and then moving on to a new character. And I almost have the entire Survivor cast at 25. That's good to know. Anyway, moving on. Always put points into shield first so you can get the maximum value, amount of value out of using your amulets on your team. That's also extremely important because on Pablo, he can produce his own amulets. So you definitely want to max out shield first. Second after that is kind of going to depend on the match itself. Personally, I would probably put points into ranged. Just because even with maxed out range damage, sometimes against a high level demon, you can't one-shot enemies until you have range maxed out. So I like to max out range second just to kind of ensure that I can one-shot basics, especially because I'm playing Pablo as more of a ranged character. After that, I'll put points in stamina and max out stamina just so I can get that extra dodge, which is going to help with my survivability. Then I'm going to max out my health, get 200 extra max health. Supports don't have a whole lot of health to begin with. They have a 900 base. So you definitely want to max that out. And then after that, you could probably go ahead and go melee. I don't recommend using melee on Pablo unless you're spec'd into it. But if you are, max out melee. And by the way, if you are a person who wants to play Pablo as more of a melee character, swap the upgrades on ranged and melee. Because I play ranged Pablo, I go ranged first. If you go melee Pablo, go melee first. And then the last thing is fear. Fear is probably your least important thing that you need to upgrade, in my opinion. Like I said, if your support gets possessed, that's usually a win for the survivors. For ranged weapons, I will typically take whatever the hunter doesn't want if I have a hunter or two on my team. For whatever reason, most of the time that means the blunderbuss. The Blundy is pretty good on Pablo. The revolver is excellent on Pablo. I actually think that for my money, the best gun you can use on Pablo is the revolver because there's so much ammo. You can carry more handgun ammo than any other ammo type. It seems to be more commonly spawned, and it seems most of the people in your game don't use handguns. Long guns seem to be the way to go for almost everybody who picks up a weapon. So I really like using the revolver, and it does a high enough amount of damage that you can really pick off basics pretty well, and that's kind of going to be your job as a support, a range support, is picking off basics and assisting in that way. For melee, it doesn't matter. You're getting the scraps of whatever your warriors and leaders don't want. You should probably get priority on melee over hunters, so don't let hunters steal stuff from you. I know solo queue, they're probably going to do it anyway, but in this case, you can see I have a legendary sword because we had ridiculous loot this game. We were finding legendaries left and right. So yeah, just take the backups, the scraps of whatever they don't want as usual. Otherwise, you want to take anything that has high balance bar damage. Dismemberment's not bad either, especially if you could see your warriors are using something that already does high balance bar. But mostly prioritize balance bar. Sledgehammers are good, baseball bat's good, shovel is good. That's what you're primarily looking for. As far as how to play, like any support, you want to always try to focus on whenever you're going to use a Shems or whenever you're going to use a amulet, try to get in the center of where everybody is. Keep in mind at the time of making this video, Pablo's range is currently bugged, his range on his heals. So you have to be like hip to hip with somebody in order to heal them. So keep that in mind, and if somebody's really low, get right next to them before you heal. Don't risk like drinking a Shems or taking an amulet on somebody who's low, and then it turns out you weren't close enough because Pablo's range sucks. So just guarantee that you're getting close enough with him. Otherwise, as far as like basic combat, I usually like to stay out of range of everything and just take pop shots at people. And this is such a bad like example I'm using in this video because I happen to have a legendary sword here, so I was meleeing a lot more, obviously. But for the most part, unless something weird happens where you're getting loaded up on so many legendaries that you get a legendary after your other warriors have also already gotten one. Hey, I gave that crossbow back to Ed. That's good. I was like, did I really steal a purple crossbow from Ed? Maybe I didn't trust him. He must have done something that made me not trust him. Anyway, but yeah, the legendary sword here is why I'm meleeing so much. But otherwise, I like to stay on the outside of the battle and just stay around the outskirts and pick off people with headshots. If somebody focuses on me, like a possessed unit, I'll usually try to run or circle back around and lead them back into my warriors or my hunter. So yeah, that's what I'll try to do. So that's pretty standard as far as supports go. Again, his stuff is bugged. Oh, I should also say for his ability, as soon as you spawn in, so let's go over the early game real quick before we end this video. Let's go over the early game. As soon as you spawn in, you're hitting Q. If your Q is up, you're using it again. The only time you shouldn't be using your Q, the second it's off cooldown, is if you are maxed out, your shields are maxed out, and you have max amount of amulets to where there's no point in doing it. But even if there's someone on your team who has a sliver of shields that they can take, of empty shields, just go burn an amulet on them and give them that sliver, and then hit Q and produce another amulet to fill yourself out. Always be using Q, like the second it's off cooldown. That's pretty much how you want to do things. As soon as you spawn into the match, I would say get a feel for how the game is going. Me right now, I personally don't like to just run off on my own as soon as the match starts, because if I do that, all of a sudden I look down to the bottom left at my teammates' health and I see that 2 people are down. And it's like, oh, it's a really high level demon who's spamming basic unit possessions. And because I'm not there, they're all dead and now the match is over. So I typically like to stay with my team for now. And then once I've figured out like, oh, you know, maybe the demon is not that aggressive. Like let's say we've gone, you know, 3 minutes deep and the demon hasn't found us yet, then maybe I'll split off. If you do split off, I wouldn't go too far from your team. Don't go so far from your team that you get to the point where like you can't run back and save them if they get into trouble. That's what I would say as far as early game goes. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as playing Pablo goes. As always, I hope this video helps you and that you become a better Pablo player and a better support, because boy, do we need better supports out there in Evil Dead the game right now. It's rough out there for supports in this game. Hopefully this video helps you, and again, if you have any other suggestions for me or any other information you want to add, be sure to let me know in the comments. As always, make sure you subscribe. Hope you're enjoying the Evil Dead videos right now. This is the last how to play video that I'm going to be doing. That's a part of the original series. After this, we're going to have how to play videos coming up on how to play level 25 versions of each character. So after I play a lot of a single character at level 25, then I'll make a video on them, because my opinion's changed, especially on some of the original how to play videos that I've made. My opinion has changed a lot since then. So I'd like to redo some of those videos. Like I would do the first one's going to be AOD Ash. The second one's going to be Henry the Red, because my opinion on how to play those characters, which perks to pick on those characters, has changed a lot since I've played them at level 25. So look forward to that. And again, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope this video helps you, and I'll see you next time.